Today, let's dive into a pretty wild idea. What if humanity's need to eat is just, well, a temporary, kind of primitive phase? We're going to take a look at a possible future where we actually evolve beyond food, beyond our current biology, and into something else entirely.
So our journey really kicks off with this pretty provocative challenge from the source material. It kind of forces you to stop and question something so basic to our existence, right? What if this whole system, consuming other life just to survive, is really just the starting line for our evolution? Let's see where that road might take us.
Because that's the central idea we're playing with here. The idea that human evolution is far from over. In fact, our source lays out a potential roadmap for our species, and it's broken down into 4 really distinct stages.
And here is that path. It starts right where we are, as the consuming human. But from there, things get way more radical. First, we might learn to harness sunlight like plants do. Then, maybe live on the energy from our very breath. And finally, transcend biology altogether to become beings of pure consciousness. So yeah, this is our journey for the next few minutes.
Okay, so let's get into stage 1, which is our present reality. To really get a handle on where we might be going, we first need to take a good, hard look at the fundamental design of where we are right now. Biologically, this is what we are. We're heterotrophs. It's a simple definition, but it has absolutely massive implications. It means our survival is fundamentally based on consuming other organisms, whether that's plants or animals that ate the plants. We literally have to take life to sustain our own. And this visual just perfectly highlights the core inefficiency of our whole system. Look, pretty much all life-sustaining energy on Earth comes from the sun, right? But by the time that energy makes its way up the food chain to us, we're only getting a tiny, tiny fraction of the original power. We're basically running on third or even fourth-hand solar energy.
And this inefficiency? Well, it comes with some huge consequences. You can see the ecological cost in our agricultural systems, the biological cost in just how much energy our own bodies have to spend on digestion, and of course the public health cost in all the diet-related diseases. It's a system that keeps us going for sure, but man, it is deeply flawed.
So this brings us to a really pivotal question. If our current way of doing things is so inefficient and so costly, what if we could just bypass it entirely? What if we could evolve to be more like plants and just power ourselves directly from the ultimate source? And that question leads us straight into stage 2, the photosynthetic human. Now, I know it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but let's look at the biological precedents that make this a genuinely fascinating possibility.
You know what's incredible? Nature has already run this experiment. This little guy is the Elysia chlorotica sea slug. It eats algae and then steals their solar power factories, their chloroplasts, and integrates them right into its own cells. For months, it becomes a literal solar-powered animal. How cool is that?
Okay, but there is a huge challenge, of course. A plant doesn't need to power a complex brain or, walk around. The energy gap is immense. A human needs about 10 times the calories of a small plant, and our skin just doesn't have nearly enough surface area to easily capture all that sunlight.
So, you might be asking, how far off is something like this? Well, the source offers this speculative timeline. It suggests that through genetic engineering, we could see the first humans with partial photosynthetic abilities maybe within the next century, and then eventually, it could become a widespread elective option.
And the impact of a shift like that? It would be almost unimaginable. We're talking about the end of mass agriculture, which would allow huge parts of the planet to rewild. It could literally end world hunger. Our entire society would have to restructure, maybe leading to a slower, more contemplative kind of existence.
But what if evolving our physical hardware is really only the beginning? The source we're looking at suggests that photosynthesis is just a stepping stone. The next 2 stages take us way beyond biology and into realms that have been explored by mystics for centuries, evolving our internal software, our consciousness itself.
This brings us to stage 3, the breath-sustained human. This is the idea that a person could live on what's called prana, a supposed universal life force energy drawn directly from the air we breathe. And while that sounds impossible, claims of this ability have popped up for centuries across multiple spiritual traditions, with some truly astonishing accounts.
And, we have to approach this with a healthy dose of skepticism. Mainstream science says breatharianism is flat out impossible, a clear violation of thermodynamics. The view is that these cases are probably fraud or delusion, but the source also keeps an open mind, asking if there might be unknown biological mechanisms at play, maybe an extreme form of metabolic reduction that science just doesn't understand yet.
So this whole line of thinking culminates in the fourth and final stage, a complete transcendence of biology. The idea here is that consciousness itself becomes the source of sustenance, not food, not sunlight, not even breath. We would evolve from beings that consume matter and energy to beings of pure energy or awareness. It's the ultimate endpoint of this evolutionary road.
Okay, so from beings of pure light, let's bring it back down to Earth. I know, it's a huge jump, but the source material connects this grand cosmic vision directly to our lives today by asking a simple question. How can you participate in this evolutionary process right here, right now?
Because the big takeaway here is that you don't just have to wait around for some distant future. The source suggests we can start preparing our own biology and consciousness now. This means things like mastering the body you already have, experimenting with practices like fasting to reduce food dependency, using meditation to connect with a consciousness that's beyond the physical form, and maybe most importantly, just holding the vision for what humanity could become.
Which brings us to this final thought. Maybe our purpose isn't to be the destination, but to be the bridge, you know? To be a conscious link in this massive journey of evolution, helping to carry humanity from what we have been to all that we could be. It's a pretty powerful way to think about our place in this whole cosmic story. Thanks for joining me on this one.